So I'm glad to have you both with me this evening. And for people who are watching on replay, thank you for joining us. This summer series, as a staff this spring, we were talking about wanting to just offer more support for parishes wherever we could. And so we talked about having a summer learning series. It's something that I believe we did a few years ago, around the time when learning communities were really a major focus for our diocese. And it was well received. And so we thought we would do it again. Um, and um, and we all just kind of brainstormed topics that we thought either people were talking about or should be talking about that we could contribute. And I hope that you'll consider tonight's topic. And last week they talked about fundraising ideas. We've got next week, Adam's going to be talking about youth. And then the week after that, Canon Megan is going to be talking about stewardship. But we're really viewing these topics as jumping off points. And so these are things, especially tonight with AI, it's something I've been thinking about, something I've been using in my work, and something I've been wanting to generate a conversation around within our diocese. But it's really a jumping off point for you to kind of say, okay, well, that's interesting, but what I really have questions about is this, or what we really need you to create some templates for, how-to guides for is this, so that we can be responsive in that way. So please do not hesitate to jump in at any time tonight. There will be a Q&A time at the end, but you can interrupt me at any time. I do have slides, but don't let that scare you. That's really more just to keep me on track, because I could go down a lot of rabbit holes when we're talking about AI and ministry. So this is really just more to keep me on track. It does not mean that you can't interrupt me or ask me your questions. So just an overview of what we're going to cover tonight. Brief introduction to AI and kind of how it's developed over the last decade and a half, talking about opportunities and cautions and drawbacks in ministry for how we can use AI together. Of course, we can't talk about a new tool like this without thinking about the ethical considerations. And so we're going to dig into that a little bit and maybe set up some bumpers for ourselves in using AI. I'll talk to you about the ways that I'm using AI most often in my work, and demonstrate some tools for you. I have a list of AI tools that might be helpful in ministry to share. And then, of course, if you haven't already asked all your questions, we'll have time for questions at the end. Before we get started, I do want to plug a Lunch and Learn next Tuesday, July 23rd. So these are short little workshops, 45 minutes at noon. We're going to be talking about media literacy. So in this election year in particular, we know that misinformation and disinformation, which is intentionally misleading information, is rampant on social media. And so it's always a good idea for us to be refining our critical thinking and media literacy skills. And we'll talk about AI more in that too. So before we get started, I know there's only 3 of us, but I think it might be helpful just to do some introductions. We already have names and parishes, but it would be helpful to me to know kind of where you are in your understanding of AI, how you use it, what concerns or questions you have, and then just for fun, favorite ice cream flavors. So I'll go first to model. My relationship to AI, I do use AI almost daily in my work, and we'll talk more on that later. But in addition to that, I rely on Siri. I have ADHD and my brain likes to go down rabbit holes. So having Siri and being able to talk to Siri on my wrist with my watch, when things come up that I'm curious about, I'll be in any number of conversations during the day and be like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder about this. And that'll take me down a Google rabbit hole. And before I know it, 3 hours have gone by. So I keep a curiosity list that I can just say, hey, Siri, add AI in youth ministry to my curiosity list, and I can come back to it later. Siri's listening. Grocery lists and timers. I used to always forget to set timers when I was cooking, and now I can just tell Siri to do it, so that's helpful. I use AI. I'm a big reader, and when I finish a book, I use it to find, okay, I want another read like this. I use it for passwords on my phone. All my accounts on my phone, I enter with my face, and that uses AI technology. I am refining my language skills with French, and the apps that I use AI to improve and personalize my learning journey. I'm part of a large research experiment where I assess and train AI, a particular AI model where, given particular parameters, I will create prompts and then rate it on those parameters for how it did so it can learn and improve. I was, before I worked for the diocese, I taught in the Brian Lamb School of Communication at Purdue University. So I had to be very aware of how my students were using AI, and be able to spot it in their work. And then I have an AI scheduler. So I put my tasks and how much time they will take, prioritization, what projects they're on, into a calendar. That's also the calendar that schedules all my meetings, and it puts my to-do list in order so that I can meet my deadlines. It is a very robust virtual assistant. So that's my relationship to AI, except I will just say that there's so much to know about AI that I know this much, and I'm learning and I'm curious. So although I do use AI and I'm familiar with it, I'm nowhere near an expert on it. So if you have questions, I may have the answers to them, I may not. And if I don't, we'll work that out together. My favorite ice cream flavor you can only get in one ice cream shop, and that is on Mackinac Island, which is an island in the Straits of Mackinac where Lakes Huron and Michigan meet. And Mackinac Island, if you've ever seen the movie Somewhere in Time, the Grand Hotel on Mackinac Island was featured there, but it's it's really famous for its flowers, especially its lilacs. And so there is a lovely lilac ice cream that you can get at the ice cream shop on Mackinac Island in the Grand Hotel. And that is my favorite. So, Michael, would you like to go next? Kind of tell us about AI and ice cream.
Okay, so I've been familiar with AIs for about 30 years. Only recently as it started being useful as the computing power is available to make it usable. I don't explicitly use any AI apps like ChatGPT, although Siri is going to link to ChatGPT soon, so um, I use Siri. So I will be using it implicitly. My favorite ice cream flavor, maple bacon.
Ooh, where do you get maple bacon ice cream?
The creamery on
Nice.
the west side of Lake Cayuga, about 20 miles up from Ithaca.
Okay, well, that is on my list for the next time I'm in Central New York. I've got to try that.
Oh yeah, it was surprising. It's like maple bacon. I got to try that, and it was good.
I've had burnt ends and sweet corn ice cream before, which was good. But yeah, I'll have to try that.
Okay.
Bonnie, would you like to unmute and tell us your relationship to AI and your favorite ice cream flavor?
I don't have much of an AI relationship, and favorite flavor, I think, is butter pecan.
Ooh, a classic. I love butter pecan. Gretchen, welcome. We are just starting off with introduction. So if you could tell us what parish you're connected with, and then kind of what you know about AI, what questions you have, maybe how you use it, and what your favorite ice cream flavor is.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Hi, I'm Gretchen Lipp. I'm from St. Peter's Parish in Cazenovia, and I really don't know much about AI, and that's why this topic was kind of an interest to me. So thank you for hosting it and trying to inform us about it. And I just stick with good old plain vanilla.
I often get vanilla when I go to ice cream shops that have, in Michigan, we have a ton of ice cream parlors that really pride themselves on their wide variety of ice creams. And sometimes that's a little overwhelming. So vanilla, tried and true. You can always count on it. All right. Well, let's move forward. And this introduction to AI may be a little, it may be a lot of review. It may be a lot of new information. So feel free to interrupt at any time with questions, or if you're like, okay, we already know all this, get to the good stuff, that's fine as well. So the working definition that we'll use is that AI, artificial intelligence, is machine-mediated intelligence that learns and thinks and simulates human behavior and can be applied to specific problems. So if we go back just 15 years ago, so Michael, you mentioned that you've been familiar with AI for upwards of 30 years. And I saw a really great TED Talk recently from the vice president of AI at Microsoft, who talked about how you kind of didn't want to tell people you were working on AI, even as recently as just 15 years ago, because it felt so fringe. And everybody was like, that's 50 to 100 years away. And so people would be like, oh, I work on AI, and it's kind of embarrassment, like the family secret. Like, we have one son who creates websites and we're really proud of him. And we have another child who works in AI. We're hoping they get along. We're hoping they make some progress here soon. It really felt like a sci-fi fever dream. But then around 2011, do you remember when I was born 80 years old, so I watched Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune most nights. Do you remember the Jeopardy episode with Watson? So this was like a big cultural touchstone, where for the first time, and I think this was in February of 2011, Watson was not just answering questions or providing questions to answers on Jeopardy, but was responding to banter. And so what we saw was natural language processing from a computer in real time. And that was really, really remarkable at the time. And then Siri came along later that year. I'll send out the link to this presentation, and I'll link it in the video description when we put the recording up. So there are links in here to my favorite Watson video is when Ken Jennings in Final Jeopardy the second night, when he knew that Watson was going to smoke him, he wrote in his answer, "I for one welcome our new computer overlords," which is a great sci-fi throwback to something about ants. I don't know. I forget which movie it was. So there's a clip of that. And then I think it's really fascinating to see the introduction videos for Siri and Alexa when they came out. So if you want to go down a little nerd rabbit hole, it's kind of neat to look back, and 2011 wasn't that long ago, and how far we've come and how revolutionary it felt to us at the time, and how we might not even recognize that in using Siri, we're using AI now, or some people don't. So we started using AI really without even knowing it. So we've already talked about Siri and Alexa. These are virtual assistants, and there are more. For a time, Microsoft had Cortana, and poor Cortana could never really quite compete with Alexa or Siri. But to schedule meetings, set timers, I mentioned I use it for grocery lists, internet searches. This is a silly example, but I distinctly remember the first time I was driving. So my car was on Apple CarPlay, and my child, who's 11 now, was she was 7 and very much in a why phase, or I wonder what this is. I wonder what this is. And she had questions after questions after questions, which is great and a great way to learn. But when you're driving, you're just like, I need to focus on driving. And we saw a possum, and she was like, "What are possum's favorite food?" And I was like, "Hey Siri, what are possum's favorite food?" Oh, and now both of my phones are going off because I said the code word there. So internet searches when you can't search. Controlling our home devices, making sure it is a I have a smart plug where I plug in my hair straightener. And I can look on my phone, or I can tell my phone to turn off power to that plug. So if I can't remember if I turned off my hair straightener, I can know that from far away. AI is really important in healthcare. So AI technology that learns and analyzes, AI technology inherently learns, and so it can analyze medical imaging data and compare it to as much data as it can find on the internet. So all of the data. And this can speed up diagnosis times and increase accuracy. AI helps make healthcare more predictive and proactive, and it can analyze that big data to inform preventative care recommendations on the micro or individual level. So all of a sudden your doctor doesn't just have their 20 years of experience with your particular condition. They have the tools to access all doctors' experience with that personal or that particular condition. And so they can improve treatment recommendations and outcomes. You've probably experienced AI when you're shopping online. It can be helpful and predictive of what you're looking at. There are drawbacks, of course. One of my favorite shows is Parks and Recreation, and Grizzle, Grizzl, is like the big scary tech company in that particular sitcom. And they used predictive AI to like just send gifts to people to try and curry favor based on what they liked and based on their conversations. And that was in 2014, and it felt really futuristic then. But we know now that our phones do in fact listen to us. And we will get custom ads based on what we're talking about. It's really interesting in my household because my husband works in agriculture and rebuilds antique ag equipment. And so he'll be talking about particular spark plugs and things that he needs for a 1930s tractor rebuild. And then all of a sudden on my phone, I've got ads for antique tractor parts. So we know that the AI is working, and sometimes that can be helpful and sometimes that feels really invasive. I already mentioned facial recognition. Security systems are really rely heavily on AI. Chatbots and customer service. You've probably had a maybe frustrating experience with this, but I've also had some helpful experiences with this where I can't find the help article I'm looking for. But if I talk it out with a chat bot, it goes, oh, well, this is the term that you should be using, and it points me in the right direction. Also, there are times when I'm almost sure it's a chat bot and not a person, and I'm not getting what I need. And I'll be like, can I just talk to a person? Can I just talk to a person? So definitely some drawbacks. AI, we use it in navigation. So if you use Google Maps or Waze, Apple Maps as well, anything like that, your routes might change as you're driving, because it can say, oh, okay, well, when you searched for this, the best way to get through Grand Rapids was this route, but now we're coming up on 4 p.m. on a Thursday, and I know that that's going to be a more crowded route, so let's reroute you this way. So we use that in navigation all the time, but then other travel applications, airlines are able to better predict delays using data from airports and flight paths and weather and all these different factors, and amalgamating or bringing that all together and being able to give much more accurate delay information. Robotics, of course, rely heavily on AI. Computer vision. So computers can't actually see, but computer vision, think self-driving cars. Or even if you have a newer car, you may have lane assist that will tell you, that will alert you if you're getting too close, if you're drifting too close to one side or the other of your lane. Gaming, there's a lot of AI in gaming. Predictive maintenance for automobiles, social media. I don't know if any of you are on TikTok, but TikTok and Facebook and Instagram do this too, but the For You page on Instagram or TikTok is all based on not just what you've watched, but how long you've watched it. And just as a side note, I worked in a communication graduate program, and a lot of my colleagues were doing research on algorithms and AI and how they were learning and how quickly, if you watched one kind of sort of extremist leaning video or maybe a hint of a conspiracy theory, within 24 hours, your entire For You page was just really extreme conspiracy theories, really fringe. We use AI in finance for risk management, fraud detection, and investment strategies, and more, cybersecurity enhancements, your Netflix recommendations, education. I already mentioned I use that in improving my French skills so that I have a personalized and adaptive learning experience. I have Duolingo Max, and so I have conversations in French with the computer, and it responds to my, it will start the conversation, but then depending on, I can agree or disagree, I can make any choice I want, and it responds and it goes there with me. And the thing that is most pertinent for our conversation today as we think about AI in ministry is that AI creates content. It can write, it can create images, it can create audio, it can create videos. And so that's primarily the use of AI that we're going to focus on today. So AI has gone from being this like, oh, we're shocked that Ken Jennings is going against an IBM computer live on Jeopardy just 15 years ago. And again, like I said, this is sci-fi, this can't happen, to it slowly infiltrating our lives without us maybe even recognizing. And with that has come more fear. And a lot of that fear is really, really valid. All of it is. So it brings up questions of what is real and what is true and how can we know? It makes me think of one of my very favorite lines from Downton Abbey is Mrs. Patmore at one point. I think it's when they get the mixer in the kitchen, the electric mixer. She goes, "It's a harbinger of our obsolescence," which is a fear that a lot of people have about AI, because if computers and robots can do everything, what are we all just going to get like a universal basic income and not work? Like where is the human touch? It feels and seems very dystopian, very, very 1984 with Big Brother, especially when our phones are listening to us and predicting what we might want to buy, and having AI involved in health issues. You think about, okay, so now my health data, my personal health data, my blood pressure, my liver enzymes, all of that information is being used somehow. So there are big medical ethics concerns. And then we know that with any technological advancement, there are always people who would use it for ill. There are always bad actors. And you don't even have to be tech savvy to corrupt AI for bad purposes. So a great example of this is, you may have heard the news, in 2016, Microsoft launched Tay, a Twitter bot. So this was an AI Twitter account. And it only took 16 hours for them to pull the plug on Tay, because within that time, enough bad actors had interacted with Tay using racist, homophobic, anti-Jewish language and slurs and ideas that within 16 hours, all of the tweets that this bot was tweeting were just absolutely atrocious and racist and hateful. So it doesn't take, it's very easily corrupted. Now there are more safeguards in place now, but that's a good example of how it can be misused. So that's generally where we are. Any questions or comments, concerns at this point? Okay, So moving forward for the rest of our time together this evening, I'm going to talk about some opportunities that AI presents for our ministry, some things to be aware of, ethical concerns, and then we'll go through some examples. So first, AI, how can we use AI as a tool for God or a tool for good? So here are some ways, I think, even in parish ministry, that that could really improve improve our work and improve our time management. And just for context, I did spend time as a parish administrator, so that helps me understand the relentlessness of, I think I was working in the church for 2 months. This was not an Episcopal church, where I was like, oh my goodness, there's a Sunday every single week. Like, there's just this routine. So the biggest thing that I think that AI can help with is that we have so many regular tasks in ministry, administrative tasks, content communication tasks, that using AI can really help us to streamline those. So we've got the circle of the church here. We have things that happen every month. We have a checklist that we need to get through every week. And AI can help us to streamline those. So that's a really helpful opportunity, because oftentimes in churches, unless you're in a very well-resourced church, if you are the parish administrator or if you are a vestry person, the part of your job description or your volunteer position description that says "and other duties as assigned" is this much of your job. And so anything we can do to kind of bring those into, like, reducing your mental load on those can be helpful. Create content about content. So the way to understand this is, if let's say you've already written an article for your blog or for your newsletter, but now you want more content about it. You want a social media post to direct people to it, or you have a podcast or a sermon that you're putting out and you want a summary of it. Image descriptions, and we'll talk about that in more detail in a little bit. So you've already generated the content. The primary content is already there, the podcast episode, the sermon, the article, but you need more out of it. AI can help you extract things really quickly and help speed that up for you. And then finally, the way I use AI the most is to generate creative inspiration. So I switch from one idea to another all day long, and to bring with it the energy to be like, okay, and now I need to write a press release about this. A lot of times, maybe you've had this experience, I sit at my computer and I'm like, I've written and I have graded, literally, I've written hundreds, graded thousands of press releases. And I will sit at my screen and be like, how do I do a press release? What questions do I need to answer? What is important here? And so I'll go to an AI tool and say, and I'll show you some examples of this later, but what are 5 main ideas, or give me a lead paragraph for this event. And a lot of times the lead it generates is not something I would use. And in fact, I make it a point to never use AI generated content as is without reviewing it and having a human touch. But I can look at that and go, okay, well, that's an interesting lead paragraph. Here are all the things that are wrong with it. And then I can edit it and fix it. And then I'm on a roll. Then I'm going. It's got me over that initial hump. AI can generate ideas for social media posts. If you're like, I've got to get 6 posts out this week, I don't have any idea what to talk about for our recovery ministry. And AI can say, okay, here's 12 ideas. And you can use that to help you. So as kind of a creative spark, I think it can be really useful. But as we think about using AI in our work, we need to be cautious about things, just like we would with any tool. So first, when you use AI, you're lacking in creativity and originality. AI doesn't write like a person. It writes like all people. It's taking all the information and it's creating kind of this summary of, okay, this is how, if you're asking me to write an event description and you want it to be invitational and promotional, this is what that sounds like. But there's no individuality in that. There's no originality. And so your unique voice and point of view matter. And if for me, communication, there's a reason why I'm in communication and I'm in discernment for ministry, because I really feel like communication is a ministry. It's the way that we mediate our relationships, which is where church happens, which is where healing happens. But if I'm not bringing my human touch to that content that I'm putting out there, then I'm not actually connecting with people. And for me, that just, it feels a little too sterile. And so that's definitely a drawback. There's no nuance in AI. So I have a lot of family members on the spectrum, and when we're communicating, we don't use nuance. We don't use, like, things are what they are. And that's how I really understand communicating with AI. When I'm giving it a prompt, when I'm helping it understand a context, it has no nuance. It only has what I give it. And another important thing to remember is that not all AI tools are crawling the web all the time. So when it's answering you with the internet and the state of knowledge in the world, maybe 3-6 months ago. And so it's not bringing in the most recent current events context. Some AI does. And that's, like I mentioned, the research project I'm part of. Part of what I look for in that is that particular AI platform has a delay of a few months. And so I want to make sure that if I ask it to do something that requires current event information, that it's going to say, oh, that's outside of what I can do. So we're trying to teach AI to know its limits and communicate its limits back to people, but it only knows what it knows. And so it's important to keep that in mind, that you understand the context and the relationship dynamics and why you wouldn't want to say this in that way, because the Altar Guild had a very particular point of view about that the last time we had a wedding at the church. And so you have all that institutional knowledge, that relational knowledge, and AI doesn't. And then finally, AI is only as smart as we let it be. And so when you prompt AI to help you with something, it only knows what you tell it. And so you have to kind of know what's missing, and you have to make sure that all the important factors are included. And I'll talk a little bit as we go through some of our examples about learning to speak well with AI, communicating well with it to help eliminate some of those blind spots. But it's a skill that has to be developed before you use it. All right, before we shift to talking about ethical considerations, I wonder if you have any questions at this point. Okay, we'll keep moving along. All right, so really anytime a new tool or technology comes to the fore, before we start to use it, we need to think about, how are we going to use this ethically? What are the implications or unintended consequences that could come from using this tool? So when I teach strategic planning, we always start with values, and your values have to be your ultimate decision filter. So we need to think about how our values as Christ followers, as baptized Christians, as Episcopalians, as parishes, as dioceses, how all of that can be kind of our bumpers if we're going to play pool, or not pool, if we're going to bowl with the bumpers on. What are our bumpers here that are going to keep us in line? And of course, the very first one, the very foundational thing that I think that we need to think about is our baptismal covenant. So is using an AI tool in this instance, in this way, with these people, affirming my baptismal covenant? Is it a good reflection of my vows to to respect the dignity of all people, to continue in the apostles' teaching, to work for justice? Is it strengthening my witness? Is it, if I'm using AI in this instance, is this a good reflection of Jesus, and the way Jesus is connected to me in my life? Does this content, or even the act of using this in this instant, align with the gospel and God's calling on my life? So this to me is our ultimate decision filter for everything, whether it's professional or personal. And so it has to be our ultimate decision filter on AI when we're using AI. Okay, another really important thing to keep in mind is transparency and honesty. Am I being clear and upfront about the role AI has played in this content? So I think it's really important that we acknowledge when we're using AI, and we do it before anyone questions whether something was AI generated. Of course, if somebody asks, we need to answer honestly, but I think it's important that people shouldn't have to ask, and that you can set an expectation that you'll know if AI was involved in this, because I will be using a disclosure. So I do this, and we'll talk about how I use AI in the messenger. But if you pay attention at the bottom of the messenger, since I've started using it, there is a disclosure that's, in fact, let me pull it up. Open the most recent issue here and show you. Can you see the messenger there?
Yep.
Yes.
So if we scroll to the bottom, disclosure: to help speed up our newsletter production process while still keeping digital accessibility a priority, alt text for images is first generated using an AI-powered alt text creation tool. It is then edited and refined by the communications director. And then I have contact information. Another place you can see our AI disclosure is on our podcast, and I'll talk about how I use that. But at the end of all of our episodes, it says AI disclosure to support our staff in their limited time. Many of our episode summaries are first generated by AI and then edited by the communications director to accurately reflect and preview our podcast episodes. So I think it's really important to be transparent about that, because there are tools and all that can identify, and they're not perfect, but they can identify, hey, this text, it's like 80% likely that this is AI generated and not human generated. And if somebody does that with some of our texts and I don't have a disclosure on there, then I've lost their trust. So I think it's really important to be transparent about it. This also gets into questions of plagiarism. Plagiarism, of course, used to be taking someone else's intellectual property and presenting it as your own. But now we have to expand that definition, so that it's not just content that other people have created, but content that I didn't create. So you don't have to look very far to find examples of articles that are just written by AI. And there are people who will just present those as their own blog posts, or as I experienced, unfortunately, quite a bit with my students, as their own academic work. And so it's really important that we're not taking credit for something that we haven't written. There are times when it's fine to have AI write things. It doesn't need a personal touch. Maybe it's just like, hey, here's a summary of this chapter. And we can say this is AI generated, but we need to say it's AI generated. And then along with transparency and honesty, I wonder, do people have enough information to make an informed assessment of this content? I don't know about you, but if I'm going to make a choice to participate in something or not, to learn more about something or not, to be associated with something or not, I want to know if what I'm making that choice based on was not written by a person, right? And so am I giving people the information they need to make an informed assessment of what I'm presenting to them in content? And so that goes back to transparency. if I'm using AI in something, I'm using my own personal judgment to say, okay, I think that this is an appropriate time to just get this content out there and use AI. And I've looked over it and that looks fine. But I want someone to be able to know that before they decide to how much weight to give that content, that it was not entirely generated by me. Okay. Next, maybe. My computer's a little behind. Oh, and now it's all catching up. Okay, here we go. Accountability and responsibility. I mean, this is with anything we create in our work or in our personal lives, we need to ask ourselves, am I prepared? Am I prepared to be held accountable in my context and in public for the creation and distribution of this content? Am I prepared if somebody decides they're really angry with Episcopalians and they're going to take it out on the Diocese of Central New York, and they're going to hold up this piece of content that has an AI disclosure on it? Am I prepared to be accountable to that and to be responsible for the impact that has? Just like if I wrote it myself, I need to be prepared to I need to be responsible for that and own up to it. Am I presenting this information responsibly and in a way that is above reproach? And this is no different than if I were to write it myself, right? But that standard has to apply here. I can't ever, if somebody complains about something, if something's incorrect, I can't ever just say, oh, well, that was AI generated and kind of pass the buck. I need to be able to say, oh, yep, I used AI for that and I did not take a close enough look at that. And that is incorrect and I will correct my mistake. And so I guess with this, I just want to emphasize that our personal responsibility doesn't go away just because we're using a tool. A good example of this was before my family moved to Michigan, we lived in a suburb out near Purdue University in Indiana. And so lawns were a big thing, right? Everybody's lawns had to be mowed at the same time, and you wanted your sidewalks to look neat, kind of that suburban, I don't know, implicit competition, I guess. Well, my husband was working late and I'm like, all right, I am going to take care of the lawn. So I mowed the lawn and then I'm like, oh, he always edges the sidewalks with the weed eater. So I'm going to do that. Friends, it looked like gophers had decided to take up residence along our sidewalk. And I was like, it's not my fault. It was the weed eater. No, it was my fault. It was the tool, but I'm the one who just absolutely destroyed our edges in our lawn. So personal accountability and personal responsibility doesn't go away just because we're using a tool. And then finally, it's really important to think about AI in terms of trust and relationships. So I was at the Episcopal Communicators Conference in April and was in a workshop about AI in ministry, and people were sharing how they used it. And someone was like, oh, this would really help me write my sermons. And my hand went up. Actually the context they gave was that they wanted to talk about AI in their church. This was a priest who was also an Episcopal communicator. And they thought the best way to do that would be to have AI write a beautiful, powerful sermon and for them to present that sermon to their church and then step away from the pulpit like they were done and then come back and say, now, how would you feel if I told you that was written by AI? And I was like, oh, nope, we cannot do that. That is breaking trust. That is manipulating people. And that's dishonest for the sake of making a point. And our relationships with people have to be our priority. So we have to ask ourselves, if I use AI in this way, will it diminish trust in me? Will it diminish trust in my organization, in the parish, in the diocese? And broken trust has big consequences, not just in our relationships, but especially since we are Christians and this is in a church context. Will me breaking trust with me or my church hurt people's experience of church? Will it hurt their experience of God and God's people? Will it help or harm my organization's current or future relationships? And then the last part of this, which I don't want to miss because this is really big, am I protecting privacy? So someone in that same workshop was like, well, we use AI when we want to know how to talk to someone through a difficult pastoral situation. And the person leading the workshop was like, say more about that. And they're like, well, we put the details of the situation into AI and then ask it to give us talking points. But in doing that, Gretchen, you're the parish administrator at St. Peter's, right?
Yes, correct.
So I'm sure there are instances where somebody will be in crisis or something really hard is going on. And maybe Mother Rebecca talks with you and you bounce off ideas, but that only exists in the context of that protected relationship. And it's not informing, AI is not learning from it. It is not living on the internet. But in that instance, if you were to put that information in and be like, gosh, I don't know how to talk to this person, give me some talking points. Well, now you've just violated privacy. Even though you didn't share it with another person, it's now informing other people's responses from AI. And other AI mistakes in terms of privacy. Can you help me think of a better way to organize this directory? Plop, everybody's directory information. Well, you've just put everyone's contact information in a new space that is not as protected. And there are some AI applications that are more privacy protected. Claude is one that comes to mind than ChatGPT. It's more private than that, but still you're feeding information to the world when you're giving a prompt to AI. And so it's really important to make sure that you're protecting privacy. This is an evolving and ongoing conversation as AI continues to develop and expand and learn, and our applications for it grow. Our particular ethical responsibilities and concerns will expand as well. But I chose these 4 areas to focus on because they're good guideposts regardless of where the technology goes. We should always be filtering through the baptismal covenant. We should always have a commitment to transparency and honesty, accountability and responsibility, trust in our relationships. And so more particular concerns may arise, and it's important to stay tuned into those if you're going to be using these tools, but these will help you make wise and ethical decisions in using this tool. So any questions, comments, concerns, consternations, appropriate jokes? Okay, we'll move on to some use cases. So sharing with you how I use AI. So I already showed you the podcast summaries. And I want to show you what that looks like. So here is an episode of our podcast from before General Convention, I forget, May 31st. And you can see here that we've got a summary, keyword, and takeaway. So if I go to our podcast studio, which I have open here, maybe. Sorry, sometimes when I'm screen sharing, my computer needs a minute. So here is that episode when we recorded it. And this is the automatic generated summary, keywords, and takeaways. It also creates titles, pulls out chapters, and things like that. So this is a tool that exists within, that's one thing that you may notice is that these tools are starting to exist within applications you already use. If you've been on Facebook recently and you've clicked on something where there's a lot of comments, you may have seen Meta AI is summarizing the content of the comments for you. It's being woven into things you're already using. So here's the episode we recorded this morning. Oh, I already did it. Let's see if I can find one where I haven't done that yet. Here's a take 2. So this is as simple as going generate show notes. Whereas so when we record a podcast, I'm co-hosting with Bishop. And what that means is if you watched Regis and Kathy Lee, I'm Gelman. So I know where we need to go. I know what we've talked about in our prep. And when it's thrown to me, I need to be able to make sure that I'm pointing us in the next direction, the next idea we need to go to. So a lot of my brain's working on that. I always have my notebook open next to me. If there are dog barks, if there are coughing fits, like I'm writing down timestamps so that my editing is easier. And so by the time the episode's done and we're done recording it, I could not tell you what we talked about. I can tell you if it felt good or not, if we met our goals or not, because that's what I'm asking myself as we go through it. But I can't, like, to sit down and write a summary. I would be like, wait, did we? And so I would have to listen to the whole thing again, 20, 25 minutes, and then sit down and write it. So having that generate show notes button is really helpful because it helps me to just, okay, here's a summary. And then I can look at it and go, well, no, we didn't actually talk about that. And that's not what that means, because AI is limited and it doesn't understand Episcopal liturgy. It doesn't understand our context. And so, but it's a great jumping off point. The other thing that it can do, and I don't think I've done this yet for the episode that will go live tomorrow, is I can generate magic clips. So I've exported the full video and I'm working on editing that and posting it, but I can click on here and it's pulled out 5 clips that it thinks are significant. And these clips are under a minute long. So they work for YouTube Shorts, Reels, TikTok, and they're pulling out key ideas. And then I can go in here and say, okay, what is this clip it's pulled out? Okay, struggling to articulate faith. And it shows me what text, the transcript is AI generated. It shows me what text it's highlighted in this. And I can say, oh, you know what? That's a pretty good idea, but why would I end a clip on when the pandemics happened in the Middle Ages? And so I would edit from there. So it helps me, instead of having to listen to the whole thing again and find places that might be interesting, it's pulling out some interesting places for me. And then I can use my judgment. Like, yes, that's something I want to highlight. That is a key idea. Or well, let's edit it. Let's move that. So that's one way. Trying not to click too far ahead here on this. We'll just see that the way it is. Next, alt text for images. So are you familiar with what alt text is? Okay, so when this has to do with accessibility. So people who have low vision or no vision often rely on screen readers that read in order content on the web, so that they know what's there, so they can take advantage of the internet just like those of us without vision struggles do. However, images are really a struggle for screen readers, and there are improvements being made here, but it has a long way to go. And so we want to make sure everyone is included. And I'm just going to log in here so you can see where we build the newsletter. We want to make sure everyone is included in getting all of the information. So first of all, hot tip, don't pack your images full of text. Because if that's the only place that information lives, you've just cut out anybody with low vision or no vision because they're not going to get that information. One way to avoid that is through alt text. Alt text is in the kind of back end data for a website or an e-newsletter, and it gives an image description. And if there's text in the image, it shows that to you. So I'm going to show you actually I've only just barely started working on the messenger that will go out this week, but I want to show you how I would use this. So we use MailChimp. So that's going to be changed, but right now it's all the content from the last messenger. It just hasn't, I've got to update it, but here's an example. This is exactly what I told you not to do, which it has text in the image. But if we go down here, and I'm gonna just open a notepad here and pop this in. The alt text, let's look at this one. So here's our logo for convention this fall. And the alt text says image description, abstract design with, I don't love MailChimp's interface, makes it kind of hard to see things. So let's put this in a note. Abstract design with overlapping colorful shapes in blue, orange, and pink hues. The text reads, "A joyful noise" in large letters and celebrating the work of God below. At the bottom, it indicates Diocese of Central New York, 156th Convention. So that's a pretty simple image description, pretty simple image, but it does more than just says a logo for the convention. It gives you a feel for what it looks like. Our newsletter, I counted the most recent newsletter had 24 images in it. And some of them are a lot more complex. Some of them have, for example, this ordination invitation is all text. And it can take a long time to communicate everything that's going on visually, because we know that these images communicate more than just what the text says, right? So even the design we've used for our summer learning series, we wanted kind of a vintage summery feel, and that's reflected in the graphics and in the colors and the font choices. And writing good, I actually have a sibling who has low vision, and so they're really passionate about good alt text descriptions. And that can take a lot of work. It has taken me more than 5 minutes per image at times. So I use AI to help write image descriptions. So for example, flyer for St. Matthew's and Horseheads promoting a free community summer lunch, features illustrations of a hot dog and a burger, and then it gives the event times. And this tool, alttext.ai, you do get a free trial, and I think it's 50 images in the free trial, so that lasts for a while. But you can also buy, I don't even actually have a subscription to this. I just buy credits as I need them. I think it's $5 for 50 credits. And if it takes me 5 minutes to write a good image description, because think about a picture where there are people in it. Like in the most recent newsletter, there was a short story from Shelley Banner about her church's Creation Care grant and the work they're doing with the community garden. And the community garden picture, there are people doing things, and it has a particular setting. So describing all that could take me like 5 minutes per image. There were 24 images in the last messenger. That's 2 hours. And so, and I have done that work. Many a messenger, I have done that work. And I have a lot of things that I'm responsible for. And so if I don't want to spend 12 hours every other week on the messenger, which is a big chunk of my time, especially when our staff is so small, then this is a really helpful tool to help streamline that process. And it's as simple as uploading the file and clicking add image. Now, a lot of the image descriptions I do edit afterwards, but it's much easier and quicker to edit something than it is to start from scratch. Okay. Writing head start or brainstorming. So I use ChatGPT quite a bit to help me get started writing projects, whether they're statements, press releases, social media posts, blog posts, even emails. I've never posted something that AI wrote, but, and this may be my particular, because I did teach undergraduate and graduate students for 10 years. This may be my grader coming out in me, but it's easier for me to take something and say, oh, well, I can tell you why this doesn't work and why this isn't right, than it is sometimes when I've had a really busy day and my brain's going in a million different directions to say, to start from scratch and do it right. I also use it to generate, we've had some crises since I've been on staff, and crisis response is really important for relationships and for calming anxiety in systems. And crisis response, I drive that bus when that happens. That's one of my responsibilities. But when I do that, where the diocese is more on display, the bishop is more on display, and I want to make triple sure that I am covering every base. And so sometimes I will say, hey, ChatGPT, and I will make the situation anonymized, non-specific. You could not know what was going on based on what I put in there. But I'll say, I am writing a statement in response to a crisis that happened. And I will say just one or two things about it. And I then will say, ask me 20 questions so that you understand the context better. And then give me 10 things that I absolutely must do for crisis response. And that's, to me, because we have such a small staff, I don't have a communication team that I can bounce ideas off of. That's how I can bounce ideas off a colleague. So it will give me a list like, here are 10 things you must do. And I'll say, yep, I've done that. I've done that. I've done that. Oh, that's really interesting. I didn't think about doing that in that way. Do I feel confident about my decision or not? Like it gives me someone to talk to. So let me see if I can, got one of my ChatGPT prompts pulled up for you. If I can find it, I may have closed the window it was in. I did. So let me log in here. Oh, that's the wrong profile. Here we go. So here's an example for St. Peter's. I didn't know you were coming, Gretchen. But Mother Rebecca reached out to me and she's like, can you help me write this statement? Because St. Peter's is closing at the end of this month, right? The Key, a consignment store that's really important in that village. And just reassuring you, I have a paid ChatGPT account, so this stays private. This isn't on the whole internet. But so I had a million things to do and I needed to get that statement out. And so I said, in a moment, I'm going to ask you to write a statement from a church to its local community about closing its longtime thrift store. But first, please ask me questions so that I can give you the information you need to write a good statement. And so it sent me within seconds, 10 questions. And then it generated, so I answered those, and that took me maybe 2 or 3 minutes. And then it generated a statement. And I looked at that statement. I said, that's good, but that is not human. And I took that statement and it became this. The structure of the statement stayed the same. The key, what really helped me is that each paragraph had a key idea and in that ChatGPT generated, and I was able to go, yes, that is the key idea I need there, or nope, that needs to come earlier. It's very important that people know that it's been operating at a loss. That needs to come up sooner. So I was able to take the idea puzzle pieces and move them around and then write my paragraphs for each one. So it cut probably my production time in half. Ultimately, I wrote the statement that I sent on to the vestry and Mother Rebecca, and then they worked with it and made it what they wanted it to be. But it just jump-started the process and sped things up for me. Nothing that I sent on to St. Peter's was how AI created it. But AI helped me get there. And again, on a small team, which most parishes are, unless you're Trinity Wall Street and you have a staff of hundreds, on a small team, sometimes you don't have someone you can be like, hey, what do you think are the most important ideas? And what do you think people will be most concerned about here? Or can you put these ideas in an order that makes sense to you? I don't have any, like, it's just me and my dog, and she's really smart, but she's not that smart. So that's helpful. One way that I would love to see people use ChatGPT or any AI is to improve SEO on our sermons and our worship services. So I'll share some tools on the next slide that you can help to do this. But I was trying to think through, as I was preparing for tonight, what would be a really like impactful use of AI in our parishes. And if you look at our parishes, most of them, I'm so proud. This is not the case across the church. Most of them are still offering an online component to their worship services, which a lot of people quit after COVID. Like, we're still in COVID. But from one of the things we heard early on in COVID from the disability community, from our seniors who are homebound, especially, or maybe just don't feel comfortable driving at night or in precipitation, was like, oh, you can include us. And we can't put that toothpaste back in the tube. We've got to continue being inclusive. And so I love that our churches are still doing that. They're including their snowbirds. They're including homebound people. They're including people who think they might have COVID and don't want to spread it. They're including families who are on vacation. And that's great. But I think that we could increase the impact of having those online services if other people could find them. And the way they find them, actually, so let me phrase this way. Do you know what the most used search engine in the world is?
Google?
What would your guess?
Google?
Not actually Google. Sort of Google. Maybe that gives
Zoom?
you a hint.
Zoom?
Nope. YouTube.
No.
YouTube is actually used more for search than anything else. So it is Google, but it's not. And so you can use AI tools like Answer the People, and I think I include that on the next slide, to find out what people are looking for online in your area related to church. So we don't have time tonight to go through it, but I'm happy to jump. You can join our office hour, or I can jump on a Zoom call anytime and show you. But tools like Answer the People bring together all those searches. And instead of having like July 21st, 2024 as the title for your live video on Facebook or YouTube, instead of even having it be like proper 15 ordinary time, people around you maybe are looking for how to pray, or they're looking for churches that serve. And you can pull those keywords and then say, okay, that's the first step of using AI, is knowing what people are thinking about and pulling that together. The second step then would be to say, okay, I'm going to put the transcript of our sermon from this video. And you can go to youtubetranscript.com and it'll just pull that transcript out for you. I'm going to put this into ChatGPT and say, here's the sermon. People around me are looking for information about how to pray. Create a video title for this worship service that brings in those keywords and connects to the sermon. So instead now of July 21st, 2024, your video on YouTube is, and you can use it to write your description as well. So your video is, this is terrible. I haven't looked at what the gospel is for Sunday, but let's say it's how to pray. It's when Jesus in Luke. Actually, that may be where we are. What year is it? Anyways, sorry. But praying in community or praying together or anything that could relate to what's in the video and can relate to what people are searching. So now you've hit people. You don't have to purchase an ad. You don't have to, but you've essentially asked them, what do you want to know? Oh, we can connect to that way more than July 21st, 2024 does. That doesn't answer their questions. That's not going to show up in search results. And so that's a really, I think, powerful way we could be using AI. All right. AI tools for ministry. OpenAI, which is ChatGPT. I showed you that tonight. I mentioned YouTubetranscript.com. You can put in the URL of any YouTube video and get a transcript. And then you can put that transcript. You can do a lot of things with that in an AI interface. You could, again, pull out keywords. You could ask it to write a summary of it. You could ask it to write a social media teaser copy for it. Alttext.ai is the alt text generator that I showed you. There are built-in AI tools in Canva, which, just a plug, that if you, I don't think any of you were able to be in the Lunch and Learn yesterday that my colleague Adam and I did about Canva for ministry, which you have access because our parishes have access to get Canva Pro for free through Canva for nonprofits, and we can help you with that. But it has AI tools built in. Adobe products have generative tools. So you may have seen Proud Jesus People, which is our LGBTQ ministry with the Upstate New York Synod of the ELCA. One of the images that we used a lot with that is Jesus, but Jesus is Black and Jesus is wearing trans pride colors. They wanted something kind of fun, and that image started out, I generated that in Adobe Express using their generation tools, and then I took it into Illustrator and edited it and made it what we want it to be. So that's a good way. I recommend to you AI for Churches, AI-for-churches.com. This is a great place where they're dealing in real time with the ethics questions. So they have an ethics collaborative there, and lots of interesting articles about how churches are using AI. So it's a helpful resource. Sermonshots.com. This is a paid service. They do have a free tier, but it's pretty limited. But if you want to expand how you're using your the sermons, for example, at your church, you could put in the video for your sermon, and it's going to do what I showed you Riverside does for us for our podcast, and it's going to pull out some clips for you that are ready to post on social media. And then Google is really launching into Gemini, their AI platform. And so there will be more tools coming out through that as well. There are a ton of other tools. Let me pull up those other notes. I mentioned Claude, C-L-A-U-D-E, I think. That is another AI writing tool. Sorry, my computer really does not like to share screens. Make sure I'm telling you the right thing here. Adobe Firefly. So firefly.adobe.com is an image generator. So if you don't have other Adobe products, that can work as well. Midjourney creates AI images as well, like Firefly. If you're using a lot of AI, make.com connects all your AI apps together. Claude is Claude, CLAUDE.ai, another tool similar to ChatGPT. Perplexity AI is AI plus a search engine, so to help you do better searches. Answer the Public, I forgot to include that on that list, but I will update the slide to have that. Answer the Public is what I mentioned about knowing what people are searching for in your area. Let's see. And then one other important tool, which I will add to this list, I meant to add it, is zerogpt.com. Zerogpt.com is an AI detection tool, and it's not foolproof, but you can put text in and see if it's AI generated or the percentage or likelihood that it is AI generated. So there are a ton of tools. So that's a big, fast fire hose AI in churches. And so I put, instead of just questions here, questions and requests, and there's no statute of limitation on this. But if you have this information and now you're like, okay, I'm really interested in that sermon title process, and I'd love a how-to guide on how to do that. That is something that I can create. I can create a how-to guide, no problem. Of course, you can call me or come to our office hour, or this link that I put right here is my scheduler. It's my AI scheduler. So you can find a time on my calendar and claim it. Or I could, if it's something that you think that all parishes might benefit from, let's create a how-to guide. Happy to do that as well. But there's so much going on that I don't want to just start creating how-to guides and tutorials that aren't what people actually need. I want to make sure that I'm responding to actual needs or wants in your parishes. And so if you have any requests for AI support, AI tutorials, more information, send those to us anytime. If you have any questions, if you come up with any problems, I'll take them now, or you can send them to us anytime. But your diocesan staff, nothing makes us happier than supporting parish ministry. And the number of times recently, especially since we've started our office hour, that people have said, oh my gosh, you just made my life so much easier. It's like, yay, that's what we're here for. That's what we want to do. So whether it's AI related or not, if you're ever feel like you're hitting your head against the wall, can't figure out a software or a problem or an interpersonal problem, that's what we're here for, is to support you. So do you have any questions or requests right now? Okay. Well, as I said, no statute of limitations on that. Happy to connect with you whenever and however we can. But thank you so much for joining me tonight. And the slides and the recording will all be available before the end of the week. If nothing else, you'll see a link to them in the messenger on Friday, depending on when I get them done. So if you need anything, please do reach out. Otherwise, we'll just be in touch, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Rachel.
Take care.
Thank you, Rachel.